Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on Discussions with the Fascia Masters. My name is Deanna Hansen. I'm a certified athletic therapist and the founder of Fluid Isometrics and Block Therapy. And I am being joined by my nephew and vice president of Block Therapy, Quinn Castellane, and our very special guest, Ashley Eden. I had the honor of being a part of Ashley's Core Connection series a couple of weeks ago, and we promoted it in our community, and everybody just loved the information that was shared through this event. So Ashley, first of all, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And if you just want to give us a bit of an intro about you, about how you've discovered what you have and what all wonderful things that you're doing.
Sure. Thanks, Deanna. Thanks and Quinn for having me here today. And yeah, thank you for, we had a large portion of your block therapy community joining us with the Core Connection series that I ran. And I really did get nothing but positive feedback from everyone that had joined from your community, as well as the other speakers and their followers and clients. And so the event was really great. Do you want me to just kind of go into what the event was in case some people maybe weren't part of it or hadn't heard about it?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I had put together it was called the Core Connection. Strengthen your core in order to strengthen your life. It was a series that I started in June, and so I guess about 5.5 months we ran. I did interviews, and then we ran over the course of 2 weeks, actually launched it. And people joined in from all over the world to watch one interview per day. And it was all about the many different aspects of our core system. So we had doctors and chiropractors and coaches and yogi masters, and everyone showed from their perspective the importance of the deep core system. And excuse me, a frog in my throat. From everyone had a different perspective on the core. And so it was really, really wonderful to bring all of that together. And that's really been a focus of mine over the last 7 years. I became a core specialist 7 years ago with a company called Bellies Inc. And from then on, I've just been focusing on how we can bring more attention to the deep core muscles, so that diaphragm, pelvic floor, TVA, multifidus, and then sort of working into out to more of the superficial muscles, and really shedding light on why it's so important to breathe and why it's so important to engage those deeper muscles to really impact the rest of your life. Everything from reducing stress to moving better to being able to just have more health and wellness, right from your diet to your structural system. So that's a little bit about the series and why I did it.
So what was it that led you to wanting to dive so deeply into this topic?
It's been an area that I've been passionate about for a while. I think it probably comes down to some of the injuries that I've had. More specifically, and I had talked about this on day one, was back when I was 21, I got a brand new professional knee board, and I've been kneeboarding since I was 4 years old, and got out on the water and just was, sort of cutting a little bit too hard. I had a really bad accident, and I didn't break my back, but the damage that I did has kind of continued on for the years. So over the last decade plus, just with, chronic back pain. And a lot of times, I'm sure that you know this, when we hurt our back, it's not just limited to our back. So we start having issues with our hips and our legs, and then, even some of our other extremities. And so it's just been a lot of me needing to educate myself in order to help rehabilitate myself. And then through that, I found that kind of ended up being my niche with my clients. Is people started to gravitate towards me, and I started to be pulled to people who needed to have some sort of rehabilitation done. And it all just kept coming back to the core. no matter what the issue was, people that came with even like tennis elbow issues, we'd find out that there was issues in the neck, and then that neck might have actually had to do with, you know, improper use of their diaphragm, and that they weren't breathing correctly. And so everything seemed to come back to that system, and that's what I continually wanted to research and learn more about, and I still am all the time.
That's wonderful. And I mean, isn't that the way, right? Like we have our own personal challenges, and that's what leads us in the direction of discovering ways of helping ourselves. And then when we find those ways, we want to share that with others. Can I ask you a question with your back injury and relating that to the core? Did you also find that you had issues with digestion or with women's issues or anything like that? Was there any related issues that came about?
Well, you know what? That's actually something I'm still trying to link, believe it or not, even after all these years. I do have some digestive issues. I have some food allergies. It's also why I ended up becoming a holistic nutritionist, was to discover, you know, to learn more and be able to help myself. And I can't say 100% if it is linked to the injury. I also had a past of having eating disorder when I was 16. And I don't know if we ever really grow out of an eating disorder. It just kind of shifts. And sometimes it can take what look like more healthier ways of doing things, becoming a health enthusiast. So I'm not sure, and that's something that I'm actually working with my own, like I have multiple coaches, is, you know, the eating issues that I have, is it stemmed from the emotional issues that I have with food, or there are times when I've been a little bit off of, you know, what I prefer to eat or what is sort of on my food sensitivity list. And then I start having some back pain and neck pain, and I wonder, is my pain linked with that? Or was it because I did something in the gym, or I just overdid it last week? And it's just, it seems to be like it's a constant journey. And you really have to be, you know, sort of journaling, or at least taking some notes or making some mental notes about your body and about what your body needs in order to, because it's different for everyone.
Isn't that true though? I also had eating disorders when I was younger, and still absolutely communicate with food from the perspective of that damaged young person that I was. I certainly have gained a lot of insight into what drives me when I'm not at my best, and what I choose when I'm not there. And isn't this time of life specifically challenging all of us to be the best versions of ourselves right now? But yeah, I definitely find that when my gut isn't connected, I'm feeling more physical pains in my muscles and my extremities as well. So I certainly personally feel that there's an absolute emotional, physical connection to that whole mindset. And for me, it started as basically starving myself. And then I wasn't able to sustain that eating disorder for a long time. So then it became a binge starve scenario for me. And what was most frustrating, as I recall back in the day, was that I got to a point where even on those starvation points, my weight kept increasing. So, you know, when we have that really inappropriate connection to feeding ourselves in food, it can certainly manifest in a whole number of psychological and physical abnormalities that we have to continually work through. So thank you for sharing that, because that's, I think so many of us really do struggle with that relationship with food and understanding. Well, and you know, in all reality, it's also not our fault. I mean, we are told so many things that may be true for some people, but aren't true for all of us. And then we try to apply things that we've learned. So it really is, you know, people like you, it's wonderful when you can combine a community of a whole bunch of different people and different approaches and information on a similar topic. And then we can sift through that and see what really resonates personally with each and every one of us. And, you know, give things a try. And really it is a lot of trial and error when you're trying to figure out your body. And that can be frustrating because it's a game of patience and time. But when we do tap into what really works, it certainly is a blessing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Deanna. it's a process of elimination. It's a process of learning, like anything else. I don't know if there's ever that destination that you just arrive at and it's like, oh, it's all together, because then your body shifts and you're kind of like, what just happened? Now there's another layer that I have to sort of uncover. And that's really why I take such a body, mind, spirit approach with my, with my training and my coaching, is because, everyone does need something different. And for me to sit there and say, this type of diet is going to work for you and this is what you should eat, well, that might not work for you. And so I'm always, very open to my clients saying, when I skip breakfast, I feel better. And it's like, okay, then let's skip breakfast, because maybe your body is okay with that. And someone else might, their blood sugar might not handle that well. And so, yeah, a really great point. And I think that's something that everyone should, sort of take away is that you do have to just get out there and keep trying different things and finding what works for you. And, because there's not a simple answer.
Quinn, I bet you have a lot to share with this, from training for your competitions and just, becoming a healthier young man. What are some of the points you'd love to share here?
Well, first off, I just have a lot of respect for people who, if you're training clients or you do have clients, to give them a nutrition plan, because that's something I never really did. I would always give them advice, but I always understood nutrition to some degree, from the aspect that everyone is completely different and foods literally react completely different with people. Like, I think it's Jordan B. Peterson, himself and his daughter can only eat meat and I think some green vegetables and salt. If they eat other foods, they will go into a depression, and they tested all this. So if they were to approach me and say, hey, I want a diet, I could give them what I think is the best diet in the world, but then they could spiral back into a depression. So, and then you mentioned like childhood traumas in a way, or I'm calling it childhood traumas, because we all have them. They're inevitable, I think. And those do carry on throughout your life. If that's an eating disorder or an injury, like I'm still dealing with my ankle injury that I broke like 14 years ago, and that shifted everything up the chain. So I'm still dealing with that. People still deal with all kinds of traumas, but that's what I don't want this to go into like a crazy inspirational thing, but that's what will define you in a way, is how are you going to use those traumas to your advantage and to make them part of you and to own that and then to learn from it and then keep improving. So I came from a bodybuilding background, but is that the healthiest way to train? My ego said yes for like 5 to 8 years. But now when I've settled my ego down, I've taken a step back, I've realized that isn't the healthiest thing for me anymore. In the moment, I loved it. I was thriving. I was angry. So I just threw heavy weights around. But now I'm like, I'm not angry anymore. Like, why am I doing this? It's actually trapping and building more anger in my body the more I lift heavier weight and the more frequently I lift in an aggressive way. So again, it is a journey, and people just have to understand that everyone is so unique, and you have to be patient with the process. If you want to, you mentioned journaling, you should journal. That's where you're going to remember little aspects. Hey, I ate kale today and I actually didn't feel good. For me, kale works great for me. For my mom, it doesn't work good for her, but people call this a superfood. So how the media and how like the health organizations tell us what to eat, it's a generic guideline. It's not a guideline for each individual. Mm-hmm. So take time, trial and error, try different modalities with self-care, try different nutrition, try different forms of exercise. I've trained many clients in the past, and they're like, and I trained them more so as a bodybuilder. And they're like, Quinn, I don't like being as a bodybuilder. I prefer to run and do more aerobic exercise. And I'm like, that's great. You figured it out. So go with that. So it's opening up, or it opened up my mind years ago to consider so many different forms of training, because again, when that ego's there, it can be really powerful, but that can burn you down nice and slow. So you have to be conscious of your ego and retrain it and become and be more humbled, because we know very little. And that's why it's so cool to interview different people and have discussions with different people, because this is fuel for all of us. We can all just keep learning more and then adding more tools into our toolbox and see what ones work. And then there's going to be tools that you can pull out in certain scenarios. I love fasting. I love carb cycling if I'm getting ready for a photo shoot or a competition, but I might not do that all the time. So it's knowing what to use and when to use it as well.
That's awesome, Quinn.
I love the ego, Quinn, because that's, you know what, I think that's such a huge part of, you know, health and wellness, is being able to do some of that, look inside yourself, being able to be the observer, because I know that ego still drives some of what I do in exercise, that I know, I probably shouldn't be doing this, but I want to get over here, but my body's, you know, this isn't really the best thing for my body. And as soon as I do it, I end up hurting myself. Or as soon as I have those things that I think, you know, I don't really want them, but I'm like here in this social situation, so I guess I'll just kind of go along with everyone. They're never the things that feel good for me. So sometimes we have to learn to, like, you know, when to be able to, I guess, like, take that little ego and push it down.
Stuff it away.
or just be aware of it and be like, okay, I know what you're doing.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Retraining the ego, because I've been there so many times. You said that perfectly. Like I'll still know when my ego's coming up, and then I'm like, no, like I'm getting smaller. Like for me, that's my issue. I built such a reflection of myself, or a personality of myself, or a perception, sorry, that's probably the correct word, of myself from bodybuilding to look a certain way. So that was like a big struggle for me, is because it was just causing me more pain. So why am I still working out to look a certain way if I'm just storing more pain in my body? Then I have to block to release it. So then I'm kind of going in a circle. So I don't think weight training's bad. I think it's like everything. You just have to know how to do it correctly and just see what works for you. I have my opinions, and I've seen what works incredibly well for myself and many other people in a certain form of training. But again, it's a trial and error. See what works for you. And if it doesn't work, then don't be frustrated. Just understand it's part of a learning experience and try something new. And then you carry on and just keep going, keep adding those tools to your toolbox.
You know, you mentioned something about Jordan Peterson, and I just thought this was something really interesting that I do like to share with people. Back, I want to say maybe about 6-7 years ago, when I was becoming a holistic nutritionist, I was in school at the time, and I had decided, you know, just based on some of the things that I was reading, that I was going to try and incorporate more soy into my diet, because for me, dairy does not do very well for me, which took me a long time to figure that out, because I didn't really have digestive issues. I had like rosacea on my face, and the doctors kept saying, it's just rosacea. There's really, you know, we don't know why. There's not really much you can do about it. And it was actually dairy. So I'd been dairy free for a while, decided to start eating soy. And I was in this great place in my life where I actually just started working for Good Life. I was really loving my job. You know, everything was going well in my relationship and with my friends, and I was in school or just finishing up my degree actually. And I started eating soy yogurt, and all of a sudden I woke up one day and I was like, I wanted to quit my job. I was starting like fights with my husband, Darren. And I was just like, I went to work, and I mean, part of my job is so social, and I'm with my clients, and I didn't want to talk to anyone. I was hiding in the office, and I thought, what is going on? And I know, like, I would never have known this before, but throughout school, and what I had learned as a nutritionist, that if something has like gone off with my my behavior, or how I'm like emotionally and mentally feeling, there's got to be a connection to something in my lifestyle, most likely my nutrition. And I thought, what have I done that's different? And I realized, oh, the soy yogurt. So cut it out, waited maybe a week, and I had another container at home. I ate maybe half it was like, those small containers, had probably about a half. And the next day I woke up and bang, I was like really, really depressed again. And that's when I found out that soy, for whatever, just maybe because of the estrogen, it's, the phytoestrogen that's within the plant, but it just plummets my, and puts me into like what feels like a depression. And there was many times over the years I'd go out and for sushi and I'd be eating edamame and not like pay attention. Next day, like boom, I felt really triggered again. So I always think that when you brought that up, it's really good for people to take note that if after a weekend they're feeling really down on a Monday, maybe it's not that it's just Monday, it's the start of the week and you're kind of like, oh, like I have to go to work. Maybe it's not that. Maybe it's like some of the habits that you had over the weekend and some of the foods that you had, because I know when I cut that stuff out and like a lot of alcohol too, I stopped waking up on Monday, like Monday to Wednesday were actually good days. Mm-hmm. I always thought it was like, oh, Thursday, I must be like looking forward to the weekend. This is great. And then when I like got rid of soy and just those, and alcohol and things that would really, I guess, drag me down in a sense, or put me into a little, affect my mood, then I started to like wake up Monday feeling like, oh, it almost feels like Friday. Like, this is great. So it's so important to look at what you're feeding your body. I mean, your body's made up of, of millions of cells, trillions of cells. And where do you think all of that is coming from? Like, it's broken down from the micronutrients in your food. So you are what you eat. It really is true.
Mm.
And that Absolutely. I think comes back to that whole being patient with yourself, being forgiving with yourself as well. For me, it took me a long time to realize that I don't digest meat properly. So meat constipates me, and I didn't connect the dots right away. So, I mean, there were times in my earlier years when I chose not to eat meat. When I was in university and dissecting bodies, I was like connecting the dots and I'm like, oh, I just can't do this. But then I would go back to eating meat and just constipation had been an issue though for me since I was a teenager. And it was probably about 5 years ago now that I connected those dots, but it took that long because each time you go through layers and layers in your body with understanding, and also as we age, we're always changing and we're always having to re-identify with what is actually feeling good, what's not. And sometimes those triggers don't affect us immediately either. Sometimes it might lag a few days before you really connect what's going on in your system. So that whole concept of journaling, I think, is just a brilliant way to track what's going on. And then you need to look at like a whole month at a time and say, okay, what's happening here, because we are so complicated. And I think part of the issue is we want that cause and effect. We want to understand things immediately. We want to respond immediately to something that we do. And that's just not the reality that our bodies go through. But as we become healthier and our systems become more efficient, I think that lag time shortens and we do get that opportunity to really see more clearly what's happening. But it's a process and we keep changing as well. So, that was great when you mentioned about, starting the soy and that is a whole different kind of nutrition that your body has to get used to. And just because for some people things are great, for all of us it doesn't mean that. So we are complicated. That's all I can say. And well, that's why, again, so go ahead, Quinn.
Well, no, I was just gonna say it's that saying, like the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, in a way. Yeah. If I'm saying that correctly, but it's something along those lines. And I think you have to find the balance between that too, because you still have to keep something simple, or else you're just going to get too much in your head. So for me, like I keep my nutrition very simple. I've never really had many issues with different foods. I've never really had issues with digestion and elimination, which is awesome. I've had issues obviously with other things, but I keep my nutrition super simple. And once you find those foods that work for you, because I do love enjoying good, tasty food, but I'm more of the result as well. I want to make sure I feel good. So once you find those base foods that work for you, then start getting creative with how to cook and make that food taste good. I eat oats and eggs almost every single day. And then I eat like a big vegetable stir fry. And some days I'll eat steak. I used to eat steak almost every single day. Now I cut that down to like maybe one time a week. So it's still trial and error and seeing what works, what doesn't. It takes time. Be patient, but you're gonna change more than you ever think because it changes your mind, as you mentioned. And what you mentioned about the soy, that's like nearly identical to Jordan B. Peterson and his daughter. Like they would eat something and boom, into depression for 2 weeks, couldn't get out of bed. Like not like that's an extreme extent.
Yeah. I mean, to
like,
last that long too. I mean, luckily it was more like a day, and then I just kept like cleansing in order to, but that's unfortunate to be down for that long. And
imagine hearing that eating soy is good for you and you eat that every single day. You're waking up every single day not at your potential. You're just always down a few notches. But then you get used to that new normal and you think that's your normal. But when you start experimenting with new foods, new forms of exercise, new anything, then you kind of come out of the shell. And then it's like that aha moment. You're like, whoa, wait, what did I do? Like, I feel amazing. And like, I've had a few aha moments this year too, where I started to meditate and get like my mind right, but like actually meditate, sit in a meditation for 30 plus minutes at a time. And obviously very challenging, but that complemented everything in my life. Like everything in my life has changed. So that was a huge tool. Really, that's a whole toolbox of meditation. It's very complex, but amazing. So that was a big thing for me. And I'm not saying everybody should meditate, but hey, why don't you give it a shot and see what you think? And I think that's what people just have to be open-minded enough to experiment and see what works for them. And a lot of us are brainwashed to believe we have to eat at a certain time of the day, the X amount of calories per body weight, X amount of macronutrients, micronutrients, and it's going to differ person to person. So again, just reiterating this, like, have fun with it. Don't think of it as a chore. Like, this is what you're fueling yourself. This is what gives you energy. This is what gives you mental clarity. This is what can give you new ideas. It's just amazing. I just have so much passion for it because I've personally felt so much transformation from testing things out. So, because I used to be a little arrogant with it too, with everything. And I can openly say that. But again, you got to humble yourself, test different things, and who knows where that's going to take you. It can take you to amazing places.
So go ahead, Ashley.
I had a client here this morning. I was just going to kind of add something to what Quinn was saying. And she was talking about how over the weekend she had her kids and a family member or two over, and there was a lot of sweets. And she, we kind of went on to an elimination diet for a little while just to see what was triggering her and if her joints would feel any different. And we kind of found a way of eating for her that felt really great. And so over the weekend, she had all these sweets and these different things. And because they kept saying, well, why? Like, you're doing all this exercise, aren't you doing it so that you can have this stuff? And she said she kind of cracked under the pressure and the guilt, which I think happens around the holiday season. That's why I wanted to bring that up. And I undergo the same thing. If I say no to desserts and to certain things, and trust me, I'm a dessert girl, but I like my dark chocolate. I like to make it myself so that I know what's in it. But I love having dessert after every single meal and every snack. Like, I like those little things, that sweetness. But it depends on what it is. And so I said, don't feel guilty for saying no, because this isn't a body thing for you, like how you look. This is that you're going to feel better. And that's what happens with me. And I'm not saying no because they're like, oh, you're so thin. You can eat a brownie. You can eat this and that. It's not that. It's that the processed sugar for me, I will wake up the next day with like an upper respiratory infection because the sugar just lowers my immune system. Well, I mean, it does for most people. It lowers your immune system immediately, and I get really affected by the sugar. So I think that if, like Quinn, you were saying, you feel good eating this way, if, over the holidays and whatnot, if you feel better not having that stuff in your, in your life or in your diet or at this point in time, like don't feel bad saying no to it. You got to go with what, feels good for you.
It's so true. And that's kind of the concept of thinking how you're going to feel before you take it in. So a lot of people just get pulled into the temptation. They're like, I deserve this, I'm going to eat it. But it's like, what you're deserving yourself is toxic food when it should be the opposite. So I think that's another bit of a brainwash too, because I think we're all kind of like that. We're all like, hey, like I had a really successful week. Like I ate really clean. Business was going great. I was active. I blocked. I did all these things. I'm going to have like a big ice cream cake, like whatever it is, or I'm going to eat like a bunch of candy. If one thing, even Deanna and I have talked about this a lot in the past, like if we want to do a cheat, make sure that the cheat is of high quality. So you're not eating really garbage candy or really garbage cake. Make sure that you're getting it from like a bakery cooked with like real organic ingredients. Then that's a little bit different. And you can still see how your body reacts, but just understand that there are potential consequences to your actions. So if you are going to go and binge over a weekend, don't be surprised if you wake up on Monday groggy, unmotivated, and not wanting to get out of bed. So
everything in moderation.
Exactly.
So as we are entering into the holiday season, we are always challenged with the foods and the drinking and all the different things that are coming. So Ashley, I think you mentioned you have something really special that you're offering to help people through this time.
Yeah, so I created, after this big project of the core connection, I said I wasn't going to do anything else until the end of the year. I was just going to allow myself to vacation, which actually my vacation does start today. But I get bored and I want to do something else. And so I decided, someone mentioned something to me at the gym, and she said, have you ever thought of doing an advent calendar? And I thought, that's a really great idea. So I came up with the Healthy Holiday Advent Calendar, and it's going to be a free Advent calendar that anyone can opt into. You can either access it through your computer or through the mobile app. And it's not an app that I created. I've just used the app in order to set the programming up. And every day from the beginning of December until the 24th, you can, open up a little door on your app or click a little button to open the door, and there'll be things like meditations and affirmations and links to different videos, whether it be a block video or another expert that is offering something. A lot of them, I'll always sort of go with some core focus ones, but there'll be, there may be some yoga videos. There's some other small businesses and local businesses that wanted to do some giveaways and some offerings, and there'll be some nutritional guides. It's kind of a surprise. So if you want to join, I think my links will be in the show notes. You'll be able to access it through either my Linktree or my webpage. And it's just the Healthy Holiday Advent Calendar. You can just put your email and your name in, and then I will send you an email on the last week of November, and it'll just have your link. And then you can, it's not meant to be anything that's time consuming. Some of them might take a minute just to read a quote, or maybe it might be something a little bit longer. I am thinking of also doing a little women's circle that's on there. So there might be a little offering from one of us, a fellow circle leader. I used to host women's circles and retreats. So, just some things to maybe relax in the evening or get your day started, just to bring some joy and some focus around the holidays.
What a beautiful way to stay connected and to stay focused with health while we indulge and have fun and do all the sharing that we do with everyone. Quinn, do we have any questions from our community?
You know what? People were a little more silent today. I think people were sleeping in. They might have indulged too much in chocolate last night. But it was an initial question. Just how do you find out what foods are best for you? But then she realized that we did mention that, and
Trial
it's
and error.
about trial and error, journaling. Oh,
Another
actually,
thing too,
more just came in.
Another tip on that is, sometimes if you go back to foods that you really enjoyed within your childhood and that like bring you joy, there can be something there that maybe gives you a little indication of what your body enjoys and what feels good for you and what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
Great tip.
Absolutely. So, we actually do have a couple more just came in.
Okay.
One is, I guess this is directed more towards me. Quinn, I saw a post where you said you stopped coffee. What did you replace it with and how is it going? I'm just going to, in 2 minutes, quickly explain this, because was this ever a journey? And did I ever appreciate the benefits after the very heavy time of 5 to 7 days? But I feel amazing after. So I was consuming a lot of coffee, but I also was taking, when I was younger, a lot of pre-workouts, which are loaded with stimulants. And when you take those and you don't give your adrenal glands a rest, and maybe you're stressed with work, running a business, whatever it is, you need that caffeine. Like, it's a drug. So I decided to cut it out cold turkey, which I do not necessarily advise, because I was in bed pretty well sick for like 5 days. I could not, I had crazy bad migraines. The aches and pains throughout my entire body were like none other, like never like being sick. They were worse than being sick. Zero motivation. And I'm just like, I'm not sipping coffee. I'm staying off it. And I still I might've had a few sips of coffee since, and I actually got like anxiety from it. But I feel really calm. I feel really calm and grounded and centered. I don't feel anxious. I don't feel like, oh, let's go. Like, sure, I miss the idea of coffee. I miss the taste of coffee, because I think people get really addicted to the taste of it. But yeah, like it was a great motivator at times, but this I prefer because I'm calm and my motivation comes from my center, not from a stimulant. I did replace it with something called mud water. That's actually what it's called, but it has a bunch of different mushrooms like reishi, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, cordyceps, chaga, lion's mane. It does have tea in it, so there is a little bit of caffeine, but it's like a tenth of what coffee is. And then there's like turmeric, cinnamon, cardamom, cacao, like all those really healthy superfoods in there that my body really enjoys. And that's what I replaced it with. And I love it. And there's some days I just don't want any caffeine. And I think it's really good for people to do a stimulant detox but wean off of it. I would definitely recommend weaning off of it and just slowly taking it back, because it was horrendous for those 5 to 7 days. And then I still had headaches for like another week after that. So yeah, that was my experience. What else do we have here? I didn't hear that else.
And while you're looking there, Quinn, I can completely attest to the fact that you're calmer since you've gotten off the coffee.
You know me better than anyone. So that is very true. Yeah. And yeah, it's something that you would never really think of. And why did I stop? It wasn't just the stimulant, but I also think like this could be a whole talk on itself. So I'm not going to get really deeper into this, but we're given the perception that coffee can be a lot healthier than it is, but it's also a very powerful diuretic that can be wringing a lot of nutrients out of your cells. And that's kind of what I was feeling. So again, trial and error, try it out, see what you think. You don't have to do it, but you might feel amazing on the other side. So one question here, what is the Advent app?
It is, I think it's called My Advent. But if they log in, or if they go to my links, and like if they're actually wanting to reach the healthy holiday advent calendar, I haven't released it yet, but if they go on to, it'll put them into my mailing list. And then, you can unsubscribe at any time if you're only wanting to do it for the holiday advent calendar. But then just before December, I'll actually send them the link that will be for this specific advent calendar.
Perfect. And I have your one link here to your website, Ashley Eden Wellness Coaching. So I'm going to grab that other link from you after the call, because we upload these to YouTube and we send this in our newsletter. So I'll make sure all those links are added in there as well. And more questions about mud water and stuff. So, you know what, we'll save that topic for another time, because it's really cool. Like, I really do enjoy it. And I could talk literally an hour on caffeine and substitutes for it, but I'll save that for another time. And I can write a little thing in the block therapy community group there about mud water and coffee. And then you guys can read all up on that there, but I just don't want to take the time away from you, Ashley.
So Ashley, do you have any other things you would like to share before we finish up this call?
Is there anything else that you wanted me to shed any light on, Deanna?
I think, again, the event that you put on was just so powerful, and the comments about the different teachings that were offered were just so appreciated by everybody that was involved in the community, and people tying those parts together. I just think that was so amazing and so important. And I understand the immense amount of work that must have gone into creating that, because you and I did our interview back in the summer. So to get that all together, and again, just hats off to you, because that takes a ton of time and attention and passion to be able to do something like that and put that together and get all of these experts in one place at one time, essentially, to share what they need to know. So just keep doing what you're doing, because you're helping so many people and giving so many people wonderful information that they need. And you're just a beautiful representative of health and beauty, and just, yeah.
Well, yeah, it was. It's nice to have the recognition for other people that, can have done something like this. You have an idea of like what the behind the scenes stuff that no one ever, like, I didn't even think about how long it would take. But, I think, if I'm going to say anything about the event, what the feedback that I got, and I mean, one of the reasons why I loved the speakers that we had is just because in everything that I do and everything that I preach and coach, it had that body, mind, spirit approach to it. And we really looked at, because you can't have one without the other. And when I say spirit, I don't mean in any sort of religious way. I mean more of the mental, the emotional side of things. And because, I mean, you can go to the gym every day and you can be the healthiest person at the gym, you can exercise 6-7 days a week, or you can, be really great when it comes to your eating. But if you're just nothing but a ball of stress, then that's not going to work. And it's the same way as if you're just, you're relaxed all the time and you don't, nothing ever bothers you, but you never exercise, you never move your body. That's not going to work either. And so I think, if anything, to really remembering to take that balanced approach. I think life is about balance, and we need to do that in our routine, and, have exercise, focus on the nutrition, focus on, our emotional development, and, through meditation or moments of mindfulness throughout the day. I think that's probably one of the, if you can become more mindful. I that's a big one that really can really change your life. And, just finding ways to, like I said, have that balance. I think that will give you much more, get you a lot further in your health and wellness journey.
Wonderful. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time. Have a very what's the word I'm looking for? You deserve your break. So have an amazing holiday, amazing time off, and enjoy. And we will all look forward to your Advent calendar, and we'll be diving into that so that we can all get through the holidays in the healthiest way possible.
Yes, yay. Thank you.
Perfect. And I'm going to grab that link from you and put it in this live call here in the comment section and in the description so people can get all set up there. And yeah, again, just to touch on that core connection series, I think that was a really brilliant idea, really brave of you too. And it was a really cool, it was actually inspirational because I'm like, wow, you're doing something big like that. That was a big decision you made to do, and it was very successful. And yeah, again, kudos to you. That was really cool. That was really cool. But all right, so that wraps up the discussion.
Well, thank you so much for having me today, and thank you for tuning in the Block community.
Thank you so much for joining. This has been a lot of fun, and this will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. And make sure that you like and subscribe the YouTube channel because we do lots of discussions like this, and it's been amazing having Ashley here giving her perspective on health, wellness, and her core connection series and the Advent calendar app, everything she's doing, which sounds really cool. I'm going to be checking it out as well. So that is everything. Enjoy your day, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye, everyone.